Well, once a week we go out to the other coast of the United States, that being the west coast of the United States, and we check in with Michael Snyder, and he goes to movies so you don't have to, and he tells us whether you should see them or not. Michael?
Hey, Alex, and yeah, it's my gift and it's my burden to sit through some of this stuff for you people, so I wish you'd be more grateful. No, I'm kidding. It's all fun at my end, except when the movie disappoints me, and it happens on occasion, and it did with our lead review, A Wrinkle in Time. Since it's a project that was made with great ambition and evident love and respect for the material, it's hard to say less than glowing things about Selma director Ava DuVernay's adaptation of the beloved 1962 science fantasy novel, A Wrinkle in Time, by Madeleine L'Engle. It's a classic of the genre, now known as young adult fiction. But I'll try to say something bad about it, and I'll try to say something good. Meg, a bright but troubled teenage girl, teenage, she's like, 12, 13. She's the daughter of two brilliant astrophysicists, and she's a misfit and outcast at her suburban middle school. And her precocious younger adopted brother, who is called clunkily Charles Wallace by everyone, is viewed as some kind of a freak because of his blunt but generally insightful observations and his ridiculously adult vocabulary. So Meg hasn't been right since her father disappeared years ago when he was experimenting with space travel, using his mind and equations to create tesseracts, like in the Marvel movies. I guess they're black holes or white holes, I don't know. At least that's what I think the guy was trying to do, but he disappears. And this puts the kid at her lowest ebb. And at this point, are you ready? 3 intergalactic guides show up in the form of 3 very well-known actresses: Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon, and less known, but still, a celebrity of sorts, Mindy Kaling. And they whisk Meg, Charles Wallace, and Meg's would-be suitor, who is this Yankee, lanky, bland classmate named Calvin, across the universe to find dear old dad. I mean, the mechanics of the science, and this is supposed to be astrophysics, are muddy, and the motivations of everyone but Meg are murky, as are the characterizations. Newcomer Storm Reed plays Meg, and she's impressive throughout. And the actors who play the parents, Chris Pine and Gugu Mbatha-Raw, do the best they can with what the script gives them, but it seems like there are pieces missing. The kid who plays Charles Wallace, Derek McCabe, has a big task, and he does have a few effective moments, but he comes off a lot of the time as shrill and obnoxious, and that's even before he gets kind of anointed as a special child by the 3 witches of outer space, or whatever they are, during the galactic journey. I mean, with a big budget, Disney needed stars attached to justify the cost. And as the shtick-heavy trio of magical angel women guiding the seeker on her journey, Oprah, Reese, and Mindy are just too much. In fact, only Kaling doesn't seem to be doing a star turn, maybe because she's the least of the trio in terms of fame. In any event, they lost me at the giant Oprah, which was actually kind of scary. Look, there's non-traditional casting, lots of special effects. Some are lovely, some are clunky. Maybe this was a case of an unfilmable classic. In any event, the wrinkle here was that I felt like I had wasted a lot of time watching it. Families might get a kick out of it. There is a spiritual component, and I guess if you just let your mind roll with it, it can be okay, but it's a little long, and I think young kids are going to get bored or freaked out. By the way, Zach Galifianakis in a small role, he's okay. Let's move on to something I liked a lot better. Thoroughbreds, a dramatic thriller about 2 upper-class teenage girls in suburban Connecticut who come together after a long period apart to solve their knotty problem at any cost, by the way. These 2 were best friends when they were younger, but an incident drove a wedge between them, and when they reconnect, the now snarky, goth-like bad girl Amanda and the preppy, college-bound Lily seem like polar opposites, but they do find common ground in their hatred for Lily's bastard of a stepfather. This thing stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Olivia Cook, and it's some creepy good stuff. Cook, who's made waves in the cool indie film Me and Earl and the Dying Girl and been on TV's Bates Motel, is Amanda. Anya Taylor-Joy had a stunning impact in The Witch and Split, and she's equally good here as Lily. In a sad but well-played footnote to this career that has tragically been truncated by a fatal accident, Anton Yelchin is on board here, but almost unrecognizable as a two-bit hustler that the girls try to use in their campaign against Bad Stepdad. It might have been Anton's last movie in the can. I don't know. There were a couple of plot holes, but dismissible in the overall context. I was a bit surprised it hadn't been released sooner, since principal photography was probably completed quite a while ago. I guess Anton's untimely death may have been a factor, but Thoroughbred was thoroughly engaging and very twisted, and those are two things that make a movie worth seeing in my own little demented book, Thoroughbreds. Gringo is next. I took an informal poll the other night, and I liked Gringo a lot more than a few of my colleagues. It's a violent, occasionally funny heist comedy, kind of a B movie with A-list actors. How A-list? Well, we can start with the lead role of Harold, a businessman who's been used and abused by his bosses and is sent from snowy Chicago to Mexico, where he's supposed to fix a problem that his company's having at their Mexican manufacturing plant. He is not played by, say, Owen Wilson or Ben Stiller, the usual suspects who would star in a movie like Gringo. Instead, he's written as a diligent Nigerian immigrant to the U.S. whose hard work for the corporation is being ignored, and he's played by David Oyelowo, way against type. And that mostly works as he shows comic flair as the hapless everyman. The bad bosses are Joel Edgerton, brother of the director of the film Nash Edgerton and recently seen in Red Sparrow, and Charlize Theron in full bitch mode. Harold's wife is played by Tandy Newton. A clueless younger couple Harold encounters in Mexico are played by Amanda Seyfried, and Dr. Frankenstein from Penny Dreadful, Harry Treadaway, and a wild card mercenary in the mix is played by Sharlto Copley. Good cast. And I had fun despite the plot holes and weird choices literally everyone in the cast makes as a vicious cartel kingpin and various officials of two countries close in on all of the characters. Edgerton directed a couple of fine movies in his native Australia, including The Square, a different Square from the one that was nominated for an Academy Award this year, about a real estate gone bust. This doesn't quite work, but you know what? I'd watch it on cable in a heartbeat, or I'd stream it. Again, maybe being overly kind because I like movies like this, but I enjoyed Gringo. A better film than anything I've mentioned so far, I think, is The Death of Stalin. Armando Iannucci, who created Veep for TV and its predecessor in the UK, which is called The Thick of It, and also co-created the character of Alan Partridge with Steve Coogan.
You forget In the Loop. You forget In the Loop, which is a film Americans would know of.
Right, what spun off from The Thick of It.
No, but they would know In the Loop before they'd know The Thick of It.
Well, for sure. In any event, they would know Veep above all, but he wrote and directed a comic look at the last days of Stalin, Joseph Stalin, the Soviet dictator, and all the chaos of his regime after his death, as all the underlings are jockeying for control and trying to become the premier and what have you. The movie stars Steve Buscemi as Nikita Khrushchev. And if that sounds odd to you, trust me, it works like a charm. And in other roles, Jeffrey Tambor, Olga Kurylenko, Patty Considine, and Monty Python's own Michael Palin, who I believe plays Molotov in this thing. Anyone in this thing is great, and it's hilarious. And it's screwed up, and it's very, very dark as these guys have to deal with Stalin's body, and they keep trying to, are they going to keep his vicious policies, the genocidal slaying of any enemies that were surmised, or are they going to become a kinder, gentler Soviet Union? The setting, Moscow, 1953, is kind of cool, and they do a great job up and down the line. Admittedly, Iannucci is playing fast and loose with history, but I thought The Death of Stalin was brilliant and dark and hilarious, and makes a great mockery of how bureaucracies basically get caught up in their own foolishness. Very, very funny stuff. I know you saw it. What did you think of the film?
I think it's probably the least of Iannucci's works. It's trying to be something. It doesn't quite accomplish it. It's like a Three Stooges comedy in the first two-thirds of the picture, and then it turns very dark into a drama towards the end. So I felt it was good. I enjoyed it, but it could have been a lot better.
I don't know. I think it was a tough thing to tackle and very, very, very ambitious, and he succeeded at what he wanted to do. I recommend it highly. Now let's just wrap up quickly with The Leisure Seeker, kind of a disappointment. An award-winning director named Paolo Virzi from Italy has made a couple of really terrific films, Like Crazy and Human Capital, and he decides to go the English language route with a road movie featuring Helen Mirren and Donald Sutherland as an elderly couple who are taking a trip from Boston to Key West, as the husband of this husband-wife team is coping with Alzheimer's. And they get into their faithful old RV, which is known as the Leisure Seeker. This is kind of a misfire, but there are pleasures to watching the two lead actors do their stuff. Otherwise, though, the Leisure Seeker kind of putters along to its inevitable conclusion. That said, this might work well on video, home video, and such. What are you watching besides having seen Death of Stalin?
Well, Jessica Jones on Netflix is available now, and I'm finding it quite satisfying, And also, I'm still watching what I think is turning into the best show on broadcast television, and that's Gotham. What?
I said, what? I will agree to disagree on that, but go on.
Oh, no. Have you been watching it this year?
I'm not a fan.
Oh, well, you're not a fan. You should be. It is really incredibly well done. And this year may be better than any of the other years they've done. So it's really turning into just an absolute great show. I'm amazed. The production values are incredible. The writing is terrific, and the development of the story is very good this year. So
you have to take it on faith that it's okay to completely mess with the Batman mythology. But I guess for people who, hey, look, my buddy Alan agrees with you. He thinks it's hilarious. It's a guilty pleasure of his in a big way.
Yeah, I don't think it plays with the Batman mythology. I think it simply fills in a hole in the Batman mythology.
Well, I won't. This is not the time or place to talk about that stuff because, as a comic book nerd, I'm set in my ways.
That doesn't make you right.
Well,
a casual observer can be.
We can play with the mythology, but having these villains exist before Batman.
These are fucking comic books. What mythology?
Well, there you go. See, there's your attitude. Hey, look, I'll tell you what. You can catch me on Twitter at Culture Blaster and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, and we'll try to argue more for you people next week as well.
Thank you very much, Michael, and stay where you are because there's more GABNet coming right up, so don't go away.